Hi and welcome. I'm Steve Martirano, and this is the Behavioral Corner. You're invited to hang with us as we discuss the ways we live today, the choices we make, the things we do, and how they affect our health and well-being. So you're on the corner, the Behavioral Corner. Please hang around a while. Hi, everybody. Welcome again to the Behavioral Corner with me, Steve Martirano. The Behavioral Corner, that's that podcast I keep telling you is about everything. And it is, because everything affects our behavioral health, our spiritual, our physical, our mental well-being. So we have a broad purview to cover stuff. It's all made possible with a great cooperation, financial and otherwise, with our partners in this endeavor, Retreat Behavioral Health. And we have, as we often do, gone back to that well again for expert advice and insight. Two of my favorite people will be joining us today. In a different capacity than you've seen Maggie Hunt and Grace Shober in the past couple of episodes here. You know them, I hope, for their marvelous help across a wide range of topics, but they've been focusing in on show business because they're both sort of closet movie stars anyway. So they review films for us that deal with the subjects of substance abuse and mental health, and they do a great job of that. But they were also the original guests I had on a show we began 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago, maybe 4, called Home for the Holidays. And that's what we're doing now. And they have graciously, I had to twist their arms, I can graciously agreed to come back and do another Home for the Holidays with us. Look, hi, ladies. First of all, how you doing? Thank you so much. You just heard me babble on incoherently about you two. I love you both. Here's the deal with Home for the Holidays. Without dredging up all of the past, Maggie and Grace are veterans of the substance abuse arena, having lived it and done that and come out the other side in such spectacular fashion. I don't know where to begin, but they offer just a great insight on some of the things we talk about with regard to something like going home for the holidays, either in early recovery or active use, because they have experience in that situation themselves. So that's what we're talking about. So, hey, guys, you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about maybe we could sort of roll this into the movie Maven thing as well. And I kept thinking of the standard holiday movie, if it's not about Santa Claus or Ebenezer Scrooge, is usually the Home for the Holidays movie, where the family gathers for this, usually Thanksgiving or maybe Christmas. And it's always the same thing. There's a crew that make up the family, and we can predict who they are. There's Dad, who's a little gruff, but lovable. There's the gay brother. There's always a gay brother, right? Or gay sister. She's there. She's either with her partner or not. There is the divorcee who's, life is in a wreck and she's popping pills between courses of meals. And then there's Mom, who invariably is oblivious to the dysfunction around her because it's the holidays. She's the last of the Mohicans when it comes to the holidays. So everybody sort of understands what the holidays are. They can be stressful, let's be honest. It's a difficult time. Never more so than when you're dealing with something like substance abuse. So that's what we're kind of focusing on. Let me begin by asking both of you right off the top of the bat, is it even a good idea for somebody to go home for the holidays? If they're in early recovery or if they're still using? Mag, is that a good idea to even show up?
I was just thinking about my first Thanksgiving home because I got sober in July. So Thanksgiving was like my first holiday that I went home. And people were like, and I was living out of town and people were like, are you sure it's okay? And it ended up being fine. And I was fine and everything was fine. But I still was like newly sober and people still probably were surprised to see, so there was just a lot of things.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of emotion. So yes, I think that depending upon your situation, as long as it doesn't really affect your overall well-being, yes, I think it is a good thing.
But Grace, it's not, well, you can tell me about your first experience, but I'm taking from what Maggie just said is that it's not something that should be automatic in your head. In other words, it's the holidays, I got to go home. What kind of thought did you give your first trip back?
Well, just like Mag said, it's like super individualized. So like some people can go home, some people can't. Um, if you can, that's great. For me, it my first holiday was Thanksgiving as well. I remember it being awkward. I mean, it was just like awkward because there you are, you're sober. Before, it didn't matter what you said or did. I can tell you right now, from my own personal experience, it was never a good idea to go home for the holidays when I'm under the influence. I always started a fight. There was always like a big problem, the whole nine. It was a big scene. So no, and there was times that I was uninvited also to, holidays. How dare they? But yeah, no, I think it's just individualized. You have to know, and you have to have a plan. If you go home.
Yeah, that's a couple. I do want to get into. We've talked to it in the past, but it's worth repeating again. The idea about having a plan, not least of which is having an escape. A way to get out when you have to get out. How many times were you told not to come home, Grace? Or it was just understood that you weren't coming home?
Like just on a holiday or in general?
No, in the holidays. Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say, that might take a while. For holiday, I can't even remember, Steve.
Yeah, Maggie, did you ever have the occasion where you got to the either Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas Eve, and they just said no, not this year?
I didn't. I think that I don't know if, maybe they were hopeful or what, but I was never yet uninvited.
Yeah. Set against the backdrop, I can't even remember. Is this our third or fourth Christmas with COVID still part of our lives? I can't remember.
Hold on, one,
third,
two,
it's a third, right? With there's something going on right now where generally the public has said, well, COVID's here, but so what? But COVID was not unlike that as well. Should we have a gathering? Is it wise to all go in the same house and breathe the same air? So that's been a pervasive sense that we all have, not so much lately when we're throwing caution to the wind, but that must have been palpable in families like yours, where Maggie, you say they didn't, stop you. Grace, you said there were times you knew not to go, but it must be almost a dread. Oh, what's it going to be like?
Well,
did you sense that, Mag? Or Grace?
No, I was going to say, like, in fairness, I also didn't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, like, it's not like it broke my heart that I wasn't invited. It upset my parents more than it upset me. But, like, yeah, no, I just wanted to throw that out there, too. I wasn't super interested in going home when I was using.
I forget how honest you guys are. It's amazing. Tell me about the family dynamic. I mean, in addition to what someone in active use or in early recovery is worried about, which is themselves, right? They must also have real strong opinions and attitudes about the effect they're having on the family. What was it like in your house, Mag?
Well, I keep thinking about the dynamic of what it was like for me when I was, like when I was using, and then what it was like when I got sober, and then kind of what it's like as like a stable sober person, like looking, looking back. Right. So I think that early on, my that the alcohol use within my family was always like seen as super jovial and fun and whatever, and everybody's Irish, and that's what we do, and holidays are always like a thing that you get together and that's what you do, and that's no matter what the situation is, like you show up right for those holidays. And so I think that I always wanted to go because I always knew there was going to be a party, so that's fun. And then when I got sober, I think I was nervous, but then everybody else was nervous as well. So it brings about like different emotions on both sides for the hosts and the family members and for myself. And so I think that it's just important. It's just a lot of things at play. So I think it's important to, weigh out the options before you make the decision.
At what point did it become okay for everybody to sort of relax a little and maybe even talk about your situation, or was it something that was just never spoken about?
Oh no. Well, my mom and my dad's family are very different and very separate. So my dad's family thinks that because I put down the drugs that I can just drink. So even today, like even if I went to a party tomorrow, they're like, "What are you drinking?" And I'm like 13 years sober, and I'm just like nothing. Like
Yeah.
and it's not because I don't. It's and even today, like it's not because I feel triggered. Oh, I shouldn't drink or whatever. It's just like I like to be in control of my life and myself, and I don't want to, feel any different or whatever. Um, but my mom's side of the family, like, and so my dad's side of the family has never talked about it until one of their children or one of my cousins or somebody else has like then needed help. And then we talk about it for a little while, but then they still can put down the drugs and go back to drinking, put down the drugs, go back. That's just what they think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Some Russian writer a long time ago said, I'll get the quote right, all happy families are alike. And I think I know what he meant by that. He was talking about the unhappy families.
Yeah.
When you say that the families are different, and that your dad was your dad's family who keeps asking you whether you still want to drink, are they are they denying your history, or are they just sort of oblivious to it, and it doesn't occur to them to be a little careful? What is it?
Probably a little bit of both. So my mom's side of the family, I'm just generally closer with anyway. Like I know, I just know them more on an intimate level. My parents were divorced, so like I've always just been closer with them. So that helps. They came to visit me like when I was away, in treatment. Like they were amazing and super supportive. My dad's side of the family probably didn't know the struggle as severe as it was, because they're like sweep things under the rug and don't talk about it. Like, if you're like hungover from the day before, it's like, you're just a little ill. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to talk about, the night before, that kind of stuff. Very like,
Yeah.
I love all of them. I love all of them. However, they have their faults for sure. So I think that they didn't really know the situation, but they also are that oblivious to the reality of what addiction is, which is crazy because we've had, my dad's death, his brother's death. Like there's so many things that have happened that I'm like, how can we still be here? But here we are.
It's defense mechanisms are amazing to look at.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say that they're ignorant, but the expression, ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
So the way they maintain a kind of equilibrium is that it just doesn't occur to them.
Right.
That there's an ongoing problem here and people have lost their lives. It just, out of sight, out of mind, I guess. Sometimes I admire people like that. Sometimes I admire people like that. What happened to our friend Grace? Did she disappear?
Grace, where are you?
No, I'm here. I'm just listening to you guys.
Well,
your video's turned
on. I
off.
know what she's doing. She's combing her hair, isn't she?
No, my hair is terrible today, Steve. However, I was about to leave to get my daughter, and I came down, and my husband left already to go get her. So now I'm just sitting here about to have a peanut butter and jelly.
Oh, okay. Well, let's put the picture up there so you can watch you watch you eat. I don't think we've seen you do that yet. Let me ask you. When was the first time? Do you host any of these things now? Are you always guests during the holidays? Grace?
Last year I hosted Thanksgiving. This year I'm doing New Year's. So yeah, I host.
Okay. And you've hosted as well, Mac?
Well, so I host for like now my family is so big that it's hard for all of us to get together at one point because my mom was one of 5, my dad was one of 8, and then like they all have their children and then they all have kids now. So it's much smaller, more like intimate. So I will host for my mom and my family, and then my mom's family is having on Saturday like a big, like everybody's going to be there for the first time since before COVID. So I'm pretty excited about that. But
I'll just tell you about my background. Because you said your family's large. My mother was one of 11, and my father was one of 7 or 9. I forget. I have 10,000 cousins.
I know, it's crazy.
And on the holidays,
that's terrible.
As kids, we pretty much
always
got to see them all. I mean, one way or another, we got to see them all. The other thing I wanted to ask you guys is I want to get into this idea of a plan. I'm particularly interested in people in early recovery where things are very fragile. What we talk about a plan for going to something like a Thanksgiving or a Christmas celebration or New Year's. What kind of things should people have in mind in terms of their plan? Grace, what do they need to be prepared to do?
Well, I think first and foremost, they need to be prepared to hear that they're not ready to go home from somebody that they like trust in the recovery community, because we just have to like totally separate our heart from what reality is, you know? And so that has to be number one. They have to be prepared that maybe that's the answer you get. If you don't listen, you don't listen. But if you are told that, you know, they think you can go home, you need to have like a list of people that you can call if you're feeling, you know, just like in a bad way or something triggered you, like anything triggered me, but like just going home or anything in general that was said to you. So having like an escape plan, we talk about that all the time. Like, hey, I have to go because of, you know, A, B, C, and D, but have that planned out with somebody ahead of time. And just keeping an open line of communication. So if you're home and you are having a hard time, you need to call people, you know, and that's kind of what it comes down to, because otherwise it's like, you're just going to sit there and probably be until you use or drink.
Maggie, have you ever had the occasion to call your sponsor when you're in one of these
Oh,
meals?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I have been many places. There have been times, and it maybe not even like my sponsor, but like somebody where I've just like, you know, I'm like, I just got to take a second here and I just got to like bring it back, you know, because you know, when I think about the disease process of addiction, like I think about it as an individual person and then at a group level. So like by myself, I'm always going to want to use. But when I bring somebody else into it, it just gives the disease a little bit less power because it's 2/1, right? So it's like 1-to-1 and then it's like 2/1. And so the more, you know, people that I include in that kind of, the less power it gives the disease and the more power it gives to me, right? Because it's not, you know, we're powerless over our addiction, but that doesn't mean that we will lack power forever in the sense, right? Because you want to like pull people in so that you get that source of power the same way as like a cell phone, right? Like the cell phone has to charge in order to get power. And so you got to plug in the phone, and that's like your support network. So like your support network is helping, you know, to have this useful equipment that can like.
Yeah. You both said something that makes me think one of the big mistakes I guess someone would make, particularly in early recovery, is to think that the holidays are a must. I must do this to prove something. That's probably a mistake, right?
Well, yeah, I just want to say really quick, Grace, because I think that that's one of my biggest struggles in life is like high expectations, like the high expectations that like have always been placed there, you know, that like you have to be here, you have to show up no matter what, right? But like that isn't really like a real strong foundation, because sometimes it's just not a good idea for you to show up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's no Grace. There's no greater event than the holidays in terms of high expectations. You know, one of my, you know, I'm such a Scrooge. One of my favorite expressions, I forget who said it years ago. Well, the holidays have us by the throat again. I mean, they do. I mean, they do. They, you know, they grab you by the lapels and they say you're going to. 'Tis the season to be jolly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a total mistake. I mean, if you're not feeling good, you should acknowledge it, right?
Yeah. Well, and people need to remember too, it's like cliche, but I love all the cliche stuff is like, if you were using or drinking, you wouldn't probably be home for the holiday anyway. So just give it a little bit of time, you know, maybe not go the first year, and surround yourself with, because look, meetings still have, like clubs in general, they have like meetings like every hour on the hour on like holidays and things like that. So there won't be a time where you're like, have totally nothing to do, you know, or you're going to be like totally alone and not going home, which I think is a fear for a lot of people. Like, okay, well, I'm going to be by myself, but my whole family is doing this, you know, type thing. So yeah, so just, you know, keep an eye out too for like Thanksgiving recovery events, you know, recovery meetings, which a plug, Retreat's having one on Thanksgiving. And so, yeah, just in general, just getting involved with the recovery community and knowing like what your other options could be.
Yeah, well, I did want to mention that because I wanted to hear from you guys on alternatives to going home for the holidays. I mean, again, the tyranny of the holidays is, no, what do you mean you're not going home? You got to go home. that there are alternatives for people that are in sensitive times in their life. And you just mentioned Retreat is having one. How about at Grace House? Will there be people at the sober living facilities that you manage who that's their holiday? It's going to be there?
Every year there's a couple, and so there's a couple of them every year. We make sure that nobody's like by themselves. It never came to this where it's like, oh, there's one person by themselves. I would just take them to my family's thing, or something like that. Like I wouldn't just let them sit alone. But most of the time, it's like 2 or 3 people. Maybe it's because of how far they live or whatever the situation might be. And they'll go to, like the 521 Club and do like the Thanksgiving. They do like bingo. They do like all this other type of stuff. But there are people that can't go, but I can't speak for everybody, but we personally wouldn't allow somebody to sit by themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maggie, is it a good idea for someone going home for the holidays during these circumstances to ask for certain things? In other words, it would be nice if you didn't serve any wine. Or is that a good idea, or can that be a problem in the holiday context?
Well, I think that's a case by case basis. I think that for myself, like I always felt like I didn't want people to make their whole life sacrifice or their whole holiday sacrificed just because of me. But on the back end, I wouldn't want them to do that. But then when I go there and they're like, hide the alcohol, put it all away, like I'm some criminal or something. Like, Jesus, it's gonna be fine. I'm fine, So
well, let me ask you about that. And I'm going to ask you to be on the other side of the table there. How do people who are with someone in recovery speak to them? You say family members will still just go, hey, what are you drinking? Do you feel the need when they do that to explain to them why you don't want anything to drink, or you just say, no, I don't want anything to drink?
I don't anymore. Even when I go to a restaurant, like sometimes like we'll go to a restaurant and they'll be like, oh, our wine tastings. And like, there's some friends that'll like that immediately, like to the waitress will be like, it's okay. We don't drink. We're in recovery. I'm like, you don't have to explain yourself to them. Like, cause Grace has done that before. I know Grace like, well, no, like we've been together when like that has happened. It's like, I just don't feel like you need to like make that as like a huge thing.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, and people make such a big deal out of it in the beginning, but like, I know athletes who don't drink because like they don't want the sugars from like working. You know what I mean? Like, there are people who don't drink that,
just because they don't drink,
because they don't want to, and they don't make a big freaking deal.
You know why I am always struck by how awkward that is for some people when that comes up, because when I was much younger, we didn't run in a drinking circle. Now, we were doing other things that were not good for us, but it was never about drinking. So I never grew up with the notion that if someone said, when the bartender said, what do you have? And if someone said nothing, it never occurred to me it was for any other reason than he didn't want to drink. Now we are so tuned in to the problem of alcoholism and substance abuse that people are hyper conscious of that. And now I think when someone says that in almost any context, the other people go, uh-oh, bet they had a problem, or bet they have a problem. Right?
You can't allow, like Maggie said, like that probably like when I first got sober, like I felt like I had to explain things to people, but now it's just like, nope, I don't drink.
Yep. I think we need to get further along down that road, even though it may sound like indifference. But what it is, in fact, is accepting the person where they are. They don't want to drink.
But I will say also, on the other hand, like my mom's side of the family, they just don't have alcohol things just because like they just don't. It's just like if it's a daytime event, they just like don't want to drink, right? And it uncomplicates this whole thing. So it's almost like kind of like a catch-22, you know what I mean? So it's like, because if you do have it and then the person is not like in a state, because like Grace and I have been sober a long time, like what, but like, in the beginning, like some people that might give them the opportunity too. So you got to be careful.
Yeah. Do you think some people are put off by or feel they're being judged by others who don't want drinks? Like, no, I'm not drinking. Do you think sometimes they go, oh, what does that make you a better person than me? Does that go on? Do you think that goes on, Grace?
No, I don't really think that goes on. Again, like you wouldn't really know. I think probably what happens is when you say you don't drink, people most likely think it's because they like are an alcoholic, not for any other reason. But I don't think that that's the case. I don't know, Maggie. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. When I think that like I have a friend who goes to my gym, and she she doesn't drink, and I'm like, but why? Because in my mind I just think that that's what everybody does, but that's not what everybody does.
I thought you were saying, maybe I misunderstood it, because I agree with that, but because my brother-in-law doesn't drink either. I'm like, what? It just doesn't make sense. I thought you meant do other people look at us when we say we're not drinking and be like, oh, they think they're better than that?
No, I don't think so.
No. I'm talking about people who, in general, who don't drink, or who drink, and then someone says they're not drinking, whether or not they don't automatically go, well, what does that make you, a better person than me? Or there's something.
Sometimes. Yeah, I think so. I think sometimes, definitely.
Yeah. Your children. First of all, how many do you have, Grace?
3.
3, and Mag, you have what? 3?
3.
And they're young, right?
Not anymore, I feel like.
Well, come on. How old are your kids?
Go ahead, Grace.
I have a 14-year-old, almost 13-year-old, and a 7-year-old.
Yeah, well, they're not
11, 6, and 7.
Yeah. Well, okay. When I say they're young, my kids are having kids, so
right.
Where I'm coming from on this. But I just wonder how much they know about your background.
My kids know. I mean, Harper he never saw me using, which is awesome. But the boys, they know what it's about, but it's not
they don't define you that way.
No, and it's not a shameful thing. It's
right.
Nothing like that. And now, granted, my kids, when it comes to the Grace House and stuff, they've had a lot of exposure to people,
mm-hmm.
In recovery, and good experiences with it and stuff like that. But my kids are great with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty open and honest with especially with Luke, for sure, because they're in the car when I get these panicked calls, and usually when I get off the phone with them, I explain it it's a lesson, I'm like, this is a person who, hurt their children, don't want to talk to them, I tell them the whole thing, without
it's one of those ironic facts about being in long-term successful recovery that's kind of interesting. You two guys came from pretty dark places to get here, but look where you are. And I only say this because I believe it, but your kids are growing up in a remarkable context. I mean, they are being exposed to things that are important to be exposed to. It's no guarantee that they'll turn out, they'll turn out the way they're going to turn out, but they do have, because of your experience, they have the access to this. I can't help but think they don't wind up more empathetic people. Because of what you two do and have exposed them to. I think it's fantastic. So who are you hosting this year? You told me about you're going to be America's guests again. We're I can warn you that as everybody gets older and you're years away from this, they begin to be pulled in all kinds of directions. And then you at some point arrive at what I call the holiday draft day, where everybody goes in and drafts who they want for what holiday. Well, they got to go to Connecticut on Thanksgiving, but we get them for Christmas Eve and Christmas breakfast. I mean, it's just, and so this year, my wife and I are looking at each other going, you know what? We're about one holiday away from going to McDonald's. It's getting weirder every year. I thank you guys so much. I think it's really important that people hear from folks like you, particularly at this time of the year, which is difficult. It is it's great. It's the most wonderful time of the year, even though when I hear that song, my teeth clench immediately. But it should be. And if it's tough for you, wherever you are, wherever you're at, you're not alone. Make sure you have the support that these guys are talking about, and you have a plan. And because the goal is to reintegrate yourself back into life and your family. So happy holidays, ladies.
Thank you. You as well, Steve.
Always a pleasure. And I guess we'll give you, some time off before we get back to the Movie Maven film reviews, because they're my favorite things here on the Behavioral Corner.
Yeah, did we decide what the next one is that we're doing?
No, you guys got to come up with something. I mean, I know some films from the 40s that you never heard of, but I think we should do something more contemporary. Yeah. There are lots of them out there. We'll get around to it. Maggie Hunt, Grace Shober from Retreat Behavioral Health. Thanks so much for joining us on the corner. You as well. Have holidays to you guys. I'll be talking to you before too much longer. Don't forget the subscription button. Hit the damn subscription button. Even if you're lying about it, just hit the button.
Just hit it.
Just hit the button. It doesn't cost you anything. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
You.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Retreat Behavioral Health has proudly been serving the community for over 10 years. Here at Retreat, we believe in the power of connection and quality care. We offer comprehensive, holistic, and compassionate treatment from industry-leading experts. Call 855-802-6600 or visit us at www.retreatbehavioralhealth.com to begin your journey today.
That's it for now. And make us a habit, hanging out at the Behavioral Corner. And when we're not hanging, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on the Behavioral Corner.